Hi you guys, welcome back to Bright Violet Arts. My name is Valerie Morris, and in the video today I am illustrating a really sweet little graduation card for a member of my family who is graduating from high school. I'll be coloring it in with some alcohol markers and a couple of paint pens today. So let me show you what I'm working with. I've got a couple of fine liners here. These are waterproof Copic Multiliners, size 0.5 and size 1.0. Black and white Posca pens, the fine point size. I've got a white gel pen, and then I have my alcohol markers. These are some neutral colors by Copic. They are the Copic Ciao line. And then I'm also working with some Arteza markers. These are the Arteza Everblend art markers. They are also alcohol markers. And lastly is the paper, of course. So the white paper that I'm making the card out of is called Xpress Blending Card, and I bought it on Amazon. It is made especially for blending alcohol markers. So that's what I like to use with that. And I'm just measuring it to fit in the envelope that I've chosen. I went with a nice red color, and that is because the school colors for my graduate are red and black. So I wanted my design to be mostly red and black in color. And getting started, I'm making some construction lines on my card, and I'm using a small T-square ruler to create those. A T-square ruler is really important for this kind of thing because it helps me keep all of my angles in these lines, these construction lines. It keeps all of them at a right angle or parallel to the edge of the paper. So I've sketched those in as light as I can. I mean, you might not even be able to see them at this point on the camera, but they're there to help me keep my sketch centered on the card. And I don't think I would do a very good job sketching in any kind of design on anything if I didn't use construction lines. So that's definitely a tip that I'd give anybody that wants to, improve their sketch. Right now I'm drawing a graduation cap, or also called a mortar board. And the most important thing I figured out about drawing that was that I needed my lines for the four sides of the cap. I needed them all to be parallel, or at least two sets parallel. And then I wanted the button that holds the tassel, I wanted that to be not right in the center of the mortar board, but actually set back a little bit closer to the back to help with the perspective. I had a little trouble with the tassel. It took me a couple of tries to get a shape to it that I liked, but I finally got it, and then I added a little bit of ivy or greenery here coming up from the banner. Over those leaves, I'm going to come back and draw just a few flowers, and I'm not worried about crossing the flowers lines over the leaves, those lines. I'm not worried about that because when I go back in with my fine liner to ink this in, I will at that point be able to show what object is sitting in front and what object is sitting behind by selecting which lines to ink in. But right now I'm just drawing everything right on top of everything else. For my lettering at the top, I'm going to write congratulations, but the way that I keep my lettering centered is that I start with the center letter of the word, and I work from the center out to the right, and then I always come back to the left to fill in the front of the word. And that's just my technique for keeping it all centered on the page with as little effort as possible. So all my sketching is done, and I'm ready to ink everything in with my 0.5 size waterproof multiliner. And now is when I'm going to pay attention with these flowers and leaves to make sure that I don't cross the leaves into the flower petals when I'm inking it in. To ink in the word, I'm going to switch the pen. I'm not going to use the Copic Multiliner. I'm actually going to use a paint pen for this because I want the black lettering to look a little different than the rest of the black ink on the page. I want it to stand out. And that paint, because it is paint, it has a different sheen than the ink. And in the finished product, it will look different. The black will be more bold that I do with the paint pen. All right, so I have erased all of my pencil lines at this point, and it's time to start coloring with my alcohol markers. And the cap, I want it to appear to be black, but the way I'm going to achieve the shading on this black cap is actually by using gray. So the top of the cap, the board part of it, is actually a dark gray color that I've got, and then I'm going to use an actual black color for the portion of the cap that's below the board, because that part would be in shadow, so I want it to appear to be a darker black. For my leaves, I'm going to use a few different shades of green to color those in, and I'm going to start by coloring everything the lightest color of green, and then I'm going to pick up my medium shade and add some definition. I like to make my shadows go to the left side of my objects, as if the light was coming from the right side of the page. So I tend to put my darker colors more on the left side of like each leaf, or wherever the flower crosses over a leaf, I'm going to put a shadow on the left side of that intersection. So it's not an exact science or anything, but it does kind of help it look shadowed. For the flowers, I'm coming in with my lightest red in the center, and then I have like 3 shades of red, so I'm going to do the medium shade in the middle of the petals, and then I'm going to come in at the very end with my darkest red, and that gives it kind of a nice ombre gradient from the center to the end of the petals, and I think that's a nice look. And I'm going to try to give some definition to my tassel here as well, with my 3 colors of red, using again the darkest color on the left side of the tassel, as if it's being hit with light from the right side. So I'll use my highlight, my bright color, and my highlighting later with a white pen. I'll do all that on the right side of the tassel, and you'll see as we go what that looks like. So I'm coming in with my neutral colors now to do a nice like creamy beige colored, ivory colored banner. And I'm going to start with a light color for the center, and then a slightly darker color for the part of the banner that's folded toward the back, to make it look like it's further away from the viewer. Just again to add that definition, make it a little more realistic. And then I'm just going to keep blending it out until I have kind of an even look to the shading. So now I'm coming back with a white gel pen, and I'm attempting to add some highlights to my tassel, but I didn't like it. So I'm going to fix it by coloring over it, but I have to wait for that ink to dry. So I went ahead and put a highlight on the cap and on the button, and now I've colored over it again with another alcohol marker, and I will try again to shade that later. One thing I want to point out quickly is that I am using a piece of plastic on my desk behind this card, and that's because alcohol markers will bleed through paper, and I don't want them to stain my desk. So I always put a piece of plastic behind that, so just in case you're wondering about that. I'm using my 1.0 size Copic Multiliner now to add some lines, like borders, like thick black borders to the banner, and that's not really necessary. I do like the way it looks a little fancier, but mostly it's because it helps me, that black line helps me like round out the shape of the banner, any place the curve wasn't perfectly even. I'm coming back now with my darkest green to add the final shadows on the leaves. And I'm trying to stay to the left side of any place there would be a shadow, but it's not always exact. I'm going to do one more layer of this darkest red to emphasize the shadow on the back side of the tassel. For the center of the flowers, I used a white gel pen here to like put a little highlight just on the right side of the center, but I didn't really like it. I'm gonna fix it later, but again, I've got to wait a minute for that gel ink to dry before I go over it again. So now I'm going to change my lettering into what we call fauxligraphy, which is where I'm going to emphasize the downward stroke of each letter with a thicker line, and that gives it kind of a calligraphy feel, hence the fauxligraphy name. So what I want to do at this point is I want to emphasize the flowers and the berries, everything red, on the greenery, and I want it to stand out away from the leaves. So to do that, I'm using my paint pen to outline just the red parts of that, and the green will kind of fade to the background. For my banner down here, I want it to have her class year on it. So I'm going to write in 2023. I, just as a style choice, I like to use a heart sometimes in place of a 0. So I am putting that in there. And I also like the fact that it balances the design a little bit, you know, because on the right side of the cap, I have the red tassel. And so I'm going to make this a red heart, which is kind of on the left side of the cap. So it helps to balance the design a little bit. Plus, it makes it a little more unique. I'm using all 3 shades of red for the heart. Again, to put the deeper shades on the left side of the heart and the lighter shades on the right, just to give it kind of a puffy feel. And now I'm emphasizing my letters again. I'm using the black paint pen for the lettering to make it stand out from the other black. And then my last little touch here is to add a white line through that black border on the banner. And I kept this clip in real time because I wanted to point out how slowly I have to draw that line to keep it straight in the middle of that black border. If I went any faster, it is very likely that my white line would be wiggly. You know, it would look crooked on the banner. So I have to go super slow if I'm drawing a long line, pretty much on anything. All right, well, this little card is just about finished up. I'm going to correct the center of the flowers as promised, and that is it. So I'll show you how the final product looked here. I do want to show you what the bleed through looks like on the inside of the card. I personally kind of like that look. I think it makes the art look really authentic when you open the card. But if you don't like that and you have an alcohol marker card, you can always glue another piece of paper on the inside of it to, you know, prevent that from showing. But there is my final product, and I hope that you have enjoyed illustrating with me today. If you did enjoy the video, if you like videos on illustration or journaling, make sure to subscribe, and I'll be back again soon with another one.